As you know, the technical professional faces unique challenges, don't you? You were hired because of your expertise and your abilities and your skills and knowledge. You were content to stay in the back room, get your work done, and everyone was happy with you, so they promoted you. And now you have to get your work done through other people, which means you have to talk all day long. Some of you are thinking, and why did I take this job? But not to worry. Your job is to present information about your industry and your company to the board, at meetings to your bosses and upper management, to investors and potential customers. The question is, how do you keep their interest? And more importantly, how can you stand out and be memorable? That's what I'm going to cover here today. And the information I'm going to cover is useful to you for impromptu speeches, for technical briefings, for formal speeches, and when you present even at a convention if you're giving a paper. So, what makes a great presentation? The most important thing is to know that audience and what that audience is looking for from you in that presentation. Perhaps you've been criticized. You give too much detail. You tell everything. We don't want to know that. Well, that's absolutely true. What you can do as an antidote is first call up the people who invited you to speak. Do your research. Then, for yourself, write out everything that you think they should hear about. But here's the trick for you to give a great presentation, and that is go back and edit what you've written. What is it that they need to know, and what are things that would be nice if they know? The need to know is what your speech is going to be about. The other information, sure, hand it out. Give it as a handout afterward. Give as much detail as you want, because there will be people in the audience who want it. However, generally, for almost every audience, except your peers, people want the executive summary. Let me tell you a little secret. People don't want to be an expert in your field. They're experts in their own fields. What they want is for you to give them the information that they want, and then let them alone so they can go back to work and do what they do best. So as tempting as it is, give the information to them in a handout, but please, your presentation will be an executive summary. Next, think of a presentation or a speech, or even at a meeting, think of one of those where you were not very successful. Each time you speak, find one person that you trust to give you realistic feedback and say, what could I do to even be better next time? And listen to what they say and try it out and see yourself how you will continue to develop and grow. Next, have you seen someone who did their audience analysis and they're giving a great executive summary speech, but they are so dull that everyone is falling asleep, looking around, checking their beepers, and walking out to get something? What are these people doing wrong? Well, they're looking down. They're not using a very strong voice. They're reading their speech, and they're speaking in a monotone. How can you avoid these things so that you will be memorable? As far as having a soft voice, I don't speak this way at cocktail parties. This is my Dr. Woolf voice. This is my Dr. Woolf clothes. When it's presentation skills day, I put on this persona. And when you speak, I want you to put on loud you. It might feel actually like yelling, but truthfully, ask someone at the office. They will say, it sounds good. We could really hear you this time. People judge you on if they can hear you or not. You lose credibility. So please do speak up. Let me give you the rules of how to use your voice to really be effective. in each sentence, I already said there's one or two key words or key points or key phrases. I want you to make those stand out in each sentence. How do you do it? Look at one sentence, maybe your opening line. Identify the key word or phrase and pause just before saying it. When you pause just before saying something, it brings attention to it. Did you notice that pause? Now, pause maybe to a count of 1, 2, 3. It will feel like an eternity, but really it goes by very quickly. Another way to bring attention and make some of your words stand out is to pause after you've said something. See, when you pause before, it brings attention to that word or phrase. When you say the word or phrase and pause afterward, it lets that point sink in. So if I say, if we do this now, we're going to save $35,000 immediately, and then I keep on talking. It's not as effective as saying, if we do this now, we will save $35,000 immediately. And then I go on. Can you see? It's very slight and very subtle, and I guarantee you, no one will even notice what you're doing, and yet it will be incredibly effective. Can you already start to see a use for these things? Good, I'm seeing people nodding. How else can you make your main points come across more strong? You can take somewhere else in your speech one of the key phrases and say it much louder than the rest. You can also say one of your key phrases much more slowly than the rest. I like to reserve saying things much more slowly to perhaps the most important word or phrase that I'm making in that presentation. You can also repeat something. It could be that the most important thing in that particular presentation was for me to talk about that $35,000, in which case I'll say, and if we do it now, we will save $35,000. $35,000. But let me issue a warning right here. I've heard people hear what I've just suggested. They've taken one technique, maybe repeating a word or saying things very slowly, and they go, oh, I can do that, but that's all they do. And then throughout their presentation, you hear the same thing over and over again. Then it becomes distracting. Rather than making your point, you're making people listen to how you're speaking instead of what you're saying. So please, take all of these techniques, sprinkle them throughout your presentations, and you will be much more effective. The same exact content can be delivered in a monotone, boring way, or it can be delivered with pauses before, with pauses after. Saying some things louder, some things softer, some things very slowly, and some things repeated, even repeating. And you will be effective.